Welcome to Dweller of the Dark. We are a channel honoring the yellowed and blackened bones of many prominent authors. We will be digging up several obscure, strange, and forgotten authors who influenced many of the great horror, science fiction, and fantasy writers today. More tales of the horrifying, obscure, strange, and forgotten are climbing out of the tombs. Subscribe, comment, like, donate, or I'll send Thaddeus Forge to steal your heathen soul. Unknown horror masters, send us ghoulish delights for the Skull and Bones collection. Your pound of writer's flesh will continue to feed our ghouls for now. Books, websites, podcasts, in the links below. Children of Horror, Legion of Ghouls. Tonight, we dedicate our most dreadful horror chapter to the Hell's Forge series, In the Beginning, to Super Ghouls, ARW, CWB, Sharky Sharkums, and Thomas Swafford. Thanks for the ravenous support. Devilishly devoted to horror, may your souls always be. Hell's Forge, In the Beginning. 3. She cried out as she twisted herself to dog paddle toward the adjacent shore near the trail to Pearl Ridge. As she scurried slowly with her legs rendered useless from her attack, Ruby recalled just where she was. It was where she and Mama often got well water when they first moved to the ridge. Looking up to the jagged, shimmering stalactites, Ruby felt some relief knowing where she might be. As light streams of water dripped from the cavern ceiling, Ruby gained more information on how far she had drifted on St. Michael's Creek into Devil's Cavern. If she waited any longer, it'd be too late. As the cave rapids pushed faster and pushed the girl further inside the river cave, Ruby grit her teeth thinking, I can't ride down into the darkness any further. It's now or never. She reached out with white, numb hands and latched onto a large black rock. All the while, in her jarring efforts, she ignited the painful fires burning in her pelvis, legs, and loin. Ruby climbed out and lay in a shallow pool for what seemed like an eternity, crying uncontrollably at everything that happened. She sobbed and turned on her side into a fetal ball. She knew she needed to get up. Ruby knew she had to stand and walk forward into the light near the entrance of Devil's Cavern. Her life depended on it, for there were things that took people in this cave. Hideous, hellish creatures lay in predatory wait, cloaked by the darkness of this watery cave. Thinking another more chilling thought, Ruby halted abruptly, fleeing the cave. Racked with icy shivers and shudders, a more unnerving terror had fastened itself like a clawed hand around her heart. She had recalled, while in the grip of this fear, that the other monster, Alistair Gordon, might be hiding and waiting to kill her outside the cave. I'll wait another hour, then move out at dusk. The darkness and the forest should keep me hidden from him. To run out now, Alistair will surely spot me and finish me off. It's better to hunker in here, rest, and clean up. Ruby touched her right eye and ground her teeth in pain. She felt the sponginess of the eye and the tissues around it that were swollen shut. Trying to push air through her nose, Ruby groaned, hearing a crunching noise. She knew by the noise her nose was broken. To make matters worse, blood clogged both nostrils, making it impossible to breathe. She went slowly to her knees, grunting, wanting to scream, but dared not. She couldn't anyway, with a swollen, broken jaw. Staying on her knees, she waddled quietly to a nearby river pool. From this knelt position, she hunched over in the pool and used her hands to scoop the freezing water to her eye. Feeling some relief from the icy water, Ruby made an attempt to freeze her nose with the water and then reset it with a painful, blinding crunch. As blood poured from the reset nose, she washed more clots out of the nares, out of her blinded eye, and below. All the while, she winced and bit down with each icy wipe. There was a wrenching, twisting, burning pain to the back of her head. Ruby felt a fiery burn to the base of her neck. It was followed with the warmest of sensations running down her breast. The syrupy flow reminded her of hot molasses poured from a jug on a hot summer's day. Seconds later, Ruby St. Clair felt no more pain. She felt nothing but an endless peace as she sunk into the long sleep that for all eternity outlasts love and hate. "Thaddeus Forge, you in there, boy?" Thad walked outside to a man in his mid-40s. The man had a tired, haggard face, tanned by years of farming crops in the sun. As he rode up on his equally wary horse, Thad realized it was his future father-in-law, Herman St. Clair. "How can I help you, Mr. St. Clair?" Thad walked out and noticed the furrowed brow of a concerned father. The man's demeanor, for rarely did Herman St. Clair ever leave his farm, gave Thad a sense of unease. "My daughter is missing, Thad. I was praying she was here. Obviously, she's not." He turned his horse to leave Thad. "She went up early this morning on Cauldron Mountain. She was going get damn plants for them two old coots, the bakers." "I'll get my uncle's horse. She never goes more than 2 hours out there." Thad's unease was growing as he went in and told Mama where he was headed. He grabbed both his dead daddy's pistols and rifle, then hurried out to get Uncle Cain's horse in the stable. Glancing back as he saddled the buckskin stallion, Jupiter, Thad saw Mr. St. Clair with his eyes fixed on Cauldron Mountain. They rode with gusts of wind blasting down off Cauldron Mountain, each man's heart racing faster with fear the longer they rode up into the forested elevations. At the trailhead that split toward the creek and then up into the higher elevations, Mr. St. Clair growled, "We need to split up. I'll go up into the crags and bluffs and push my way down. You head from the mouth of Devil's Cavern, following St. Michael's Creek. We'll meet in the center. If you find her, send off a shot." "I will." Thad nodded and headed down toward the darkness of Devil's Cavern. Mr. St. Clair turned back for just a moment with his orange lantern blazing. The old farm man yelled one more ominous warning as he nodded with his black cowboy hat and rode off. "You see anything peculiar, get out of there. If something calls out to you other than my Ruby while you are near that damn cave, you blast it with gunfire and bolt. Then ride out of there as if hell itself was after you, Thad. Remember, they call it the home of the devil for a reason." Thad rode Jupiter cautiously near St. Michael's Creek. The last thing he needed was to slip on the lichen-covered river rock with his horse and both get injured. As they continued, Thad held his own lantern out in front of him and Jupiter ablaze. He glanced wide-eyed as the golden light illuminated the shifting shadows of both he and Jupiter in the darkness. He continued to hear the lonesome clop, clop, clop of his horse echoing as he neared the towering granite that made up the Devil's Cavern. He saw the grandiose opening that literally, by lantern light, could have been the columns to a vast, otherworldly gateway. On he rode, studying the movement of clear water from the winding creek waters, entering the 50-foot high by 30-foot wide cavern. The young cowboy could easily have believed he was journeying with Perseus or Agamemnon down into the river Styx to fight a Gorgon, rather than look for his beloved Ruby near St. Michael's Creek. Let's hope we aren't near here too long. There's no way Ruby went inside that place alone. At the entranceway to the cave, Thad had stopped briefly. Raising his lantern, he looked out across the moving creek shore for any sign of Ruby. He continued to slowly study the shorelines of both sides of the cave, praying for any sight of her. Billowing clouds of ghostly fog from deep within blanketed the entrance, but shining further inside, Thad caught glimpses of the shimmering stalactites Ruby had witnessed earlier. Onward he stared, wide-eyed, taking in the enormity of the vast river caverns, extensive cathedrals, and subterranean labyrinths that would make any search with even 1,000 men a challenge, much less one sole searcher. For starters, visibility to spot Ruby was nigh impossible. Shaking his head, he dismissed the possibility that Ruby was inside such a creepy place. He was certain that his beloved would have avoided Devil's Cavern at all cost. He sighed nervously and grimaced, then turned from the cave and headed up St. Michael's Creek, shining his lantern as he heard a rumble of thunder in the distance. He peered out cautiously in front of him to ensure the safety of Jupiter. As the two rode forward just 20 feet outside Devil's Cavern, Thad spotted something on the wet rocks. A sickening feeling of dread rose up and almost caused Thad to retch. Chills up his spine and cold sweat on his brow alarmed him that something was indeed wrong. For what Thad had found was Ruby's engagement ring. It was the wooden ring he had spent days carving for her in honor of their joyous day. Ruby would never take that ring off, but maybe she dropped it by accident while washing plants by the creek.
You don't believe that hideous forge?
A hissing voice that seemed to circle Thad wickedly cackled out in the fog-filled darkness.
Besides, I can show you where Ruby St. Clair resides now.
Thaddeus Forge had been warned by Mr. St. Clair. He had been told to blast away and ride off. But hearing this stranger's voice saying Ruby's name had frozen him. Forgetting the warning and his panicked fear, Thad dismounted and pleaded to the voice. Please, sir, tell me where she is. She's my fiancée, and we're...
I'd better not.
The voice interrupted grimly. It circled around Thad so quickly that the young, gangly cowboy could have sworn the fog was the voice.
You should keep your happy memories of your beloved.
I don't like the way you said that, mister. In fact, all your stalking around me and creeping behind me in all this fog is getting on my last nerve. Thad pulled both his Colt 45 pistols with lightning-fast draws and cocked to blast away. If there's something you need to say to me about Ruby, then say it. Thad, forgetting where he was, roared.
No need to waste your bullets, Thaddeus Forge, on me. I was trying to spare you any more pain. Better to have loved and lost.
Thad could have sworn the cave sighed as the voice in the darkness lamented.
I can show you the location of Ruby. I can even tell you what happened to her.
Thad narrowed his eyes, slightly lowered his lantern to try and make out the shape of the hissing voice. Then glancing right, then left again, he couldn't discern the shape of the voice nor any movement. Thad placated and thanked the mysterious voice, nodding to the mist. Thank you. She's a great girl. She's had a hard life with our town because of her leg, and I guess being in love with me.
Sometimes love can be blind in that regard.
The voice paused, then reminded Thad.
Remember when you walked back there? I warned you.
The voice laughed as Thad watched, wide-eyed and mesmerized, as a corner of the cave, over 100 feet to his right, illuminated with a ghastly red, oozing glow.
I find it so amusing how much stock and faith you people put in such a fleeting emotion as love. In fact, over the years, I have noticed, to my amusement, all of those feelings: fear, envy, chastity, hate, and love rot away like a dried out rose. Once one of you beds down for the long sleep of death for all eternity.
Thad ignored the lecherous voice's lecture. I'm not concerned with your morbid philosophy, whomever you are. However, I will be glad you helped point me in the right direction to find Ruby. He took a deep, grateful sigh. Where is she?
Why, where I just lit up the cave, in that glowing corner, you will find your precious jewel.
The hissing voice seemed to slither as a snake toward the red illuminated area as it beckoned Thad to follow.
Once you find her, take your time, as I know reconnecting with a loved one after a tragedy is necessary. Maybe we can discuss terms.
For helping me? You bet we can talk terms. Thad nodded to the darkness and hurried into the Devil's Cavern to find Ruby. He glanced back a moment to ask, "What's your name, by the way?"
We can discuss my name and my terms when you return. I don't expect that to be anytime soon.
The voice seemed to grow more guttural in its pitch. Then Thaddeus could have sworn he heard leathered flapping as the voice rose up into the cathedral ceiling of the shimmering quartz cave. As it left, the hissing serpent echoed to Thad some final words that made the cowboy's stomach flip again.
After you and Ruby Sinclair reconnect, you'll want to know everything. I'll be here for you, of course.
Thad turned to flash his lantern, where the red ooze still glowed. The flickering glow cast long shadows of himself and the rocks surrounding him. Onward he navigated through a maze of various boulders to the very spot where the ooze towered as a volcanic eruption over a rectangular pile of rounded, large river stones. Thad recoiled from the pile, noticing something pale beneath the stones. Sweat poured off his brow, and his eyes went wild with unnerving terror and apprehension. He wanted to turn away and run from that pile of cryptic iron stones. As he wiped his brow with a silted hand, unhinged and unaware of his actions, he paused and took a breath. He took another and sighed deeply. Then Thaddeus Forge placed the fiery lantern on a boulder near his right hand and began to pull away the stones. He pulled 3 stones away when he noticed his hand stained with something sticky and dark like molasses. He stopped and grabbed the lamp. In the glowing orange and white light of the lantern, Thad saw that the molasses black sticky goo in the lantern light was crimson. It was blood. But whose blood could it be? With his heart racing like thunderous hooves across a prairie, Thad raced to pull more rocks away from the pile of stones. After 5 more stones had been drawn, his narrowed eyes fixed on a waxen pale hand. 6 more stones pulled back, and he made out the tattered dress. 8 more stones pulled, he saw the battered face and the slashed throat of his beloved Ruby. Thaddeus Forge threw his maddened arms around his murdered fiancée and tried to pull her from the rocky grave. Insanely, he put his hands through the lifeless red curls of her hair. His tears fell onto her gray eyes that once held the shimmer of emerald green. He saw the modeling, he saw the blood, and he saw the bruises. He saw all the carnage rent to her body, taking in every horrific detail of her murder. Only when Thad had felt the full weight of Ruby's injuries, her rape, and of course her torture before she was savagely killed, did he finally act again. He unleashed a hellish, blood-curdling scream. As Thaddeus Forge erupted his anguished cry, the glowing blood ooze, in response to his pain, set the whole of Devil's Cavern alight in a blinding blaze of red and the most frightening of wails. It was as if hell itself had sent out its cries, dripped down its fiery tears, and followed with him to mourn. Thad walked the whole way down Cauldron Mountain, carrying his beloved Ruby. At times he fell to the rocky ground, but not once did he let Ruby's corpse hit the earth. As the tears flowed like the winding creek of St. Michael, he would sob, look down at Ruby's beaten, lifeless face, and bawl some more. Finally, when his arms were racked with cramping and his fingers were long numb, he stopped to rest. Going to his aching knees, he made sure Ruby didn't fall. She'd been through enough today, being beaten and murdered. Lowering his head and teetering on madness, Thad sang to his dead fiancée her favorite ballad he had wrote. He had planned to surprise her and sing it to her in front of the whole town at their wedding. He let out a guttural groan like a wounded mountain lion, then wailed and screamed out again, realizing that would never occur. Listening to the lapping water near the trailhead, looking around at the fireflies, and seeing the moon rising in the swaying pines, Thaddeus Forge let the tears fall to the misted, damp ground as he took a haggard, sobbing breath. Then he murmured the words solemnly and at times incoherently as he sang his little ballad, Brilliant Star, to Ruby. The wildflowers are her song, They covered the ghostly dew of the mountain, reaching for the golden dawn that gleams as fire from the forest fountain. She has heard the whippoorwill cry their songs under the mystical moon, and there another haunts the night sky. From Lake Lanier shores whistles the loon. She will always be here, lover whose red fires forever burned. You who wiped away my tear, the ghostly shadow that I yearn. Oh, she went forth through the mist, laying her heart before a heavenly altar, and gave her soul in a kiss, a brilliant star that knew not how to falter, never again to feel hate or scorn. No wasting time wailing and weeping, for only the proud have time to mourn. Her soul lies peacefully and deftly sleeping. He lifted Ruby, pushing back her curl of red hair. Tears and strands of saliva fell from the grieving boy's mouth. Then he kissed his beloved and whispered, I will love you always. One day, we'll be together again. Dad? Cletus's voice called out in front of him in the darkness. Thad's best friend raised his lantern and screamed. He ran and slid next to an exhausted and insane Thaddeus Forge. He tried and failed to remove Ruby's battered body from Thad's iron grip. When that failed, he helped Thad to his feet, and together they carried the corpse of Ruby St. Clair into the village near Pearl Ridge. Someone in the darkness along the way witnessed the macabre scene and cried out horrified, Oh dear Lord! Maybe the someone was a younger version of me.